Chord Theory 1, the structure of major and minor chords. If before now you've never had any interest in guitar theory, then the usefulness of it can't be underestimated. You can use it for writing music, understanding what you're playing, and even just simple tasks like understanding why you can have a chord with one chord name and several different shapes. However, if you've tried some guitar theory lessons and have struggled to understand them, it's more than likely because of a lack of background knowledge. And to help you with these lessons, it's wise to learn a major scale and a minor scale. A 1-octave scale would do, but a 2-octave scale would be better. That's the one that goes across all 6 strings. And with the minor, it doesn't matter if it's the harmonic minor or the natural minor, as either scale will do for these theory lessons. I'll place the links down below in the description to a lesson on the 2-octave major scale and the 2-octave minor scale. Another thing it can be really useful to know if you want to apply the theory to your guitar is the name of the notes on your guitar neck. And I'll put another link down below in the description to how to memorize this in 4 easy steps. And I'll also put a free ebook with a note chart in it on the website www.ebooksforguitar.com. And that might be useful to print off and keep with you. Right, let's get into the all-important lesson. The structure of the major chord. Every major chord is made from a thing called a triad. And a triad is 3 notes. The first, the third, and the 5th note of the major scale with the same name as the chord you're trying to create. So, if we were to take a look at C major, for example, the chord would be made up of the 1st, 3rd, and 5th notes of the C major scale. And they are C, E, and G. And this is the triad. So, to emphasize this, the triad of C major is C, E, and G. And every single C major chord is made up of those notes. And fundamentally, that's it. However, I'm aware this raises some important questions. And the first one I'll address is the fact that a lot of chords have 4, 5, or 6 strings being played, and therefore 6 notes. And the reason you can play a chord across 6 strings and it still be the triad is because you're literally just repeating the notes on a higher octave or 2 octaves higher. And quite often they're not even in order of the triad. And this doesn't matter as long as it's the notes of the triad. However, where you can, you should really start the chord with the root note. And the root note is the note that gives the chord its name and the scale from which it was derived. So in the case of the C major chord, the root note will be C. We'll take a quick look at chords that don't start on the root note at the end of this lesson. Here's just a very simple, practical demonstration just to prove that what I'm saying is true. And the electric guitar will be playing the scale, and the acoustic guitar will be playing the chord. And this is just so you can tell which guitar's playing because of the difference in sound. So here's the scale on the electric guitar of C major. And here's the broken chord of C major played on the acoustic guitar. Now, here's the first note of the C major scale. And here's the first note of the C major chord. Let's hear that again. Right, here's the third note of the C major scale. And here's the second note of the C major chord. Let's hear that again. Finally, here's the fifth note of the C major scale. And here's the third note of the C major chord. So you can see the first, third and fifth note of the scale make up the first three notes of the C major chord. And the last two notes on that C major chord are the C and E again, which are both in the triad. Right, let's move on and take a look at the structure of the minor chord. If you understood the structure of the major chord, then the minor chord will be really easy, because it follows exactly the same rules, in that you find the triad by finding the first, third and fifth note, but this time of a minor scale. And for this example, we're using A minor natural, and you can see the first note is the A, the third note is the C, and the fifth note is the E. So the triad is A, C, E. So just as it was when we took a look at C, all A minor chords are made up of these three notes, even if they're different shapes and in different places on the neck. They'll always be made up of A, C and D. One easy rule you can take away from this lesson when producing chords is that any scale will always produce a triad for the chord of the same name as the scale. So for example, A major scale will produce an A major chord, or A minor scale will produce an A minor chord. G major scale will produce a G major chord, and G minor scale will produce a G minor chord, and it continues like that. Right, let's take a look at one last thing. What are chord inversions? Chord inversions aren't a really important part of guitar theory, and you don't seem to hear them mentioned much these days. However, it's a really good idea to know what they are and to understand how they're formed. For one thing, they can help you understand why sometimes some chord shapes are different, and sometimes they start on a different note other than the root. So, a clear definition of what an inverted chord is: any chord that starts on a note other than the root being the note that gives the chord its name. In this particular tutorial, we've looked at the major and minor chords, which are made up of a triad. So, an inverted chord would be one that started on the third note of the scale or the fifth note of the scale. So, for a major and minor chord, there's two forms of inversion. A first inversion is where the second note of the triad or the third note of the scale is played first. So, for example, with a C major, you'd play the E first, being the third note of the scale. The second inversion is where the third note of the triad or the fifth note of the scale is played. So, with a C major again, you'd play a G as the first note of the chord, G being the fifth note of the scale. From a practical point of view, if you've ever seen a chord name and then a forward slash with a note name, this is how we write down that you're playing a chord with a different note in the bass. And this applies to inversions as well as moving bass lines and stuff. This particular lesson I've tried to keep as simple as possible so anyone can follow it. However, there's a lot more chord theory you can learn and a lot more detail. And because of this, I've put together a playlist including the scales and a lot more on chord theory. So if you want to learn more about this subject, or you want to go into more detail, just go through that playlist, which will be down below in the description. Also, you can find lots of free lessons on the website www.ebooksforguitar.com. And if you enjoyed this lesson and want to see more like it, please like and subscribe and hit the bell icon, and then you'll be notified when I upload new videos. You'll also help the channel to survive and grow. And finally, thank you very much for watching.